So I'm sorry this looks so much like a hostage video because of the lighting, but really quick rundown. I'm going to make a nicer version of this, but I wanted to get the video that I promised you before you start your tour. I'm going to make it nice and all that jazz and do visual elements and all that. But as of right now, this is the nitty gritty of nickels and dimes. Okay, so starting on the very front end of the chain. Actually, before we do that, the theory of nickels and dimes is there is no one thing that is going to magically fix difficult headset mics, right? It is a culmination of a bunch of little things all put together that will increase the opportunity and the probability of success, right? So starting at one end of the chain, let's start at the microphone itself. So, of course, you know, we talked about this a little bit, the mic choice, like the Countryman H6 versus the DPA 4488s. Being different capsules in the way that they are addressed, right? So the Zoom H6 is an end fire, which means that the mic element goes this way in a cardioid, if you have the cardioid tip on it. And we've already discussed why, you know, cardioid rear end rejection is way more optimal for going into a bunch of different venues where the PA hangs and things might be less than ideal. Cardioid is definitely the way to go. And so there are end fire, which would fire this way, whereas the 4488s, which also have a really lovely core technology, whatever they call it, that helps with feedback rejection. But they are side fire. So you would have to kick out your mic a little bit like that because the cardioid is actually in this direction, right? So different applications might lend themselves to different things, and just knowing your capsule and knowing what you're trying to achieve can help you have a great start. Okay, so let's talk about gain staging. You might remember when I first got on Gabby's, we knocked the packs down from +6 to -5 is about where we ended up. The theory behind that, so say you don't have a wireless pack. Say you are going straight from an analog board to a microphone, right? Your gain, of course, is the ratio of signal over noise, but how it is actually applied is voltage. There is an electric bias voltage that of course powers an electromagnet in here with a driver coil on top. As you put more bias voltage into the capsule, the electromagnetic field increases. There's no such thing as magnetism or electricity. It is all electromagnetism, right? So as you're pushing more into that head amp, or from the head amp to the capsule, you are actually increasing the physical size of the electromagnetic field, right? So we want to optimize our gain stage so that we are only picking up exactly what we want to and not anything outside of that range, right? So by knocking down the packs from +6 to about -5, where we landed, we have now shrunk the electromagnetic field around the capsule, making the actual pickup pattern smaller. Now, the flip side of this is, with this method, we need to be mic position Nazis, because if it is not right at the corner of your mouth when you smile, you are not going to get the same proximity effect. You're not going to get a great low end. It's going to sound thin. You're not going to be getting in the input levels all the way to unity that you want, right? So finding the right place for your gain stage to be is mucho important. The reason why when you add a wireless pack into the mix is now that board, analog board or digital, whatever your head amp is no longer controlling the electromagnetic field of the mic itself. You are just pushing more signal into that ratio, but your actual mic gain stage is not changing. Again, that's with a wireless pack. So that allows you to run at a lower head amp gain, and once you're more optimized with your pack settings, right? So moving on from the gain stage, right? So when we are all right, this is going to be more polished in the final version, but let's just run straight down the channel strip, the signal path. So your compressor settings, right? So compression is not perfect. Single band compression. Now, if you have a multi-band compressor, you can really get nice control over what is happening across your entire signal. Single band compressor or like channel compressors, they are A, not perfect, and B, can introduce a lot more problems vis-a-vis feedback, right? So you really want to be careful that when you are driving into your compressor, right, that you are actually hitting your compressor with a good amount of the signal. You don't want a lot of the talking to happen, or singing, whatever, below that threshold. You want your compressor to smooth out the top part of the high level of things, and bring up your low part of the signal, right? So because the compression is not perfect, when you drive into a compressor, it's not happening equally across all the bands. Theoretically it is, but the math doesn't hold up. And so you need to be very, very careful with your makeup gain. Only give it a little, like +2 maximum. Otherwise, as you drive harder into the compressor, it's grabbing frequencies unevenly. It may be at whatever ratio. It's grabbing those and pulling the signal down across the spectrum. Your makeup gain is then trying to push that squash signal up. So the same reason why we don't do additive EQ is because when you are talking about things going across the unity line, you may be riding at a solid -6 overall. You start pushing things up, but not across all the spectrum evenly. You get happy frequencies, you get artifacts, right? So you really want to be careful about your makeup gain. Typically with singers, I like a moderate attack. I don't like it to have like a hard transient, like a kick drum or a snare would. And I like it to have a soft release, so it kind of sounds natural, right? A little bit of a longer release, so you're not really hearing it bite. Also, with the headset mics, I do like to keep a nice gate on there. It has to be kind of low level if they're going to be speaking kind of quietly, like whispering a little bit. You want to keep your gate kind of low, but it is nice to catch a lot of, it helps with the isolation of things in your final mix. The settings for that, I try and keep my attack around 21 milliseconds. That way you don't hear it engaging. It's a little bit softer on the front end, so people don't notice that it's opening up when they trigger it, right? You want it to be a little bit soft, just like the back end of the compressor, the front end of the gate. You want to just make a smooth on-ramp and a smooth off-ramp for your signal. Let's see. So as far as EQ goes, so I speak about this a little bit in the practicum. On the channels themselves is where, after trial and error, I will put the color correction. Like if you have a female voice that's especially bright, or especially a lot of front of the mouth, or that's where you color those specific channels. I wouldn't recommend using channels to the channel strip, the input channel strip. I would not recommend using that for feedback cutting down. Not even the low pass filter. The low pass filter is where I will just kind of, give it a little bit more bottom end for the guys, or maybe clean up a little bit of mud. But most of my actual frequency control, I like to do on my group. That way, if I need to change things, I'm not having to do it for a dozen channels, right? So that covers EQ. So as I talk about in the practicum, I like to do my vocal group send and return to the lake post fader. That way, everything that you do here ports out that way. I actually use my vocal return, my pre-ring room out, to send to my stage wedges, right? So you already get the pre-ring out, so you may have to do a little something for the interaction of the mics themselves to the monitors, but for the most part, you're not setting off the room itself, right? It's just isolating every little piece so that you don't have a little bit of your monitor ring out built into your vocal group. You don't have your channel color. It's just keeping things separate, right? And to that effect, so any effects that I do put on, I do like to do, again, off of my vocal return, either the individual channel or the group, and do a post fader effect send from there. And that way, again, we're not introducing an unrung out microphone into the system that's already been rung out. We've already done that work once. We're not trying to do it again, right? And so really, it cuts down on effort that you have to do ringing out your verb. You might have to cut 2, maybe 3 happy frequencies. Typically, I will roll my effects off way high, like all the way up to 500-600, and roll them down a high cut till about, it depends on how crispy you're trying to get, how front of the mouth. I will for sure get my verbs and my delays down, if not right at, but below 6K, where that really starts kicking in, because you start repeating that and adding artifacts, and especially like plug-in verbs can be really rich, and they add their own inharmonicity and their own nice bright color of their own. I'm not trying to put color into color, right? Yeah. So the next part of this video is the practicum. Again, this is the shortened version. I will have a nice, beautiful, fully done video at some point in the future, and I'll post that online and do all that jazz. Best of luck, Heather. Okay, so again, I'm going to make a prettier version of this video, but I owe you this before you start your run. So nickels and dimes in practicum. So some big things from the jump. Your vocal send What I do is can't really see that, can we? Is I burn an aux for the vocal send. Come on, baby. Yes, that's my vocal send. And if we look on the input side, my vocal send here is all post fader, so that for obvious reasons, as I adjust my mix down here, it sends in proportion. My vocal return, another big thing to note is that not only are the gain not at unity but at 0, and my digital trim at 0 as well. That's so you're not, putting power into power, for also obvious reasons. So on your lake itself, right? So this is how I have the Gaby file set up. Now, I am doing one channel for all of them. What I wish I would have done and wish I had the outs for, which you might find useful, is to, instead of burning one channel for the vocal send and return, burn 2 so that you have a lead and a chorus, or a lead and a background, whatever. That way, as you adjust your returns, you can push your lead without also simultaneously pushing your chorus. Now, to set it up this way, it will normally come looking like this, all right? And so typically it's set up as left, right, sub, fill. You will go to your, let me get it going right here. You'll go down to your groups, and as you can see, you can you select a group, right? So this will show you my all group. Has everything except my vocal send and return, right? And my left-right group is just my left and right, right? So if you had 2 that you were using as your let's say lead and chorus, you could always go to an unused group. That's not ideal. The stage is already super too far down. Can you slide it off to one side or the other? Yes. Okay, thank you. But if we could stay behind the number line. Thank you. And so to make that group, you would then land that group wherever you wanted. You go down to your label here. Label it whatever you want. And then, so you go to toggle assign. And then you can select what all goes into your group, right? Now, just so I don't mess up what I already have going, I am going to untoggle assign. While I have group 3, I'm just going to remove. And then you have your group set up. You exit your groups, group exit. So now in the lake itself, you've seen this process that I've done. Typically, I start the day off with a low pass, roughly 135. I try and land the corner at 125, and if I have to, I will work my way up, right? I chose today to do this specific video because it is such a difficult mix situation. We are doing another center cluster, which, if you can see, there's speakers, there's lots of stage-facing speakers. What we have done is we have added, my shitty video, we have added fills on the side there. There are also lip fills across the front of the deck. What I am doing is, and this is another nickel and dime principle. So if I know I have my mains, which are in the pattern of the stage is in the pattern of the mains, I'm going to be pushing these puppies pushing these puppies pretty hard, right? And they become not fill speakers, but they become auxiliary PA. So, of course, the nickel and dime theory is all about not only accuracy, but precision. So when you have a bit of feedback, you'll notice that for the most part, it is very narrow. You can pick out a specific frequency. The way I have set my little guides on this is that anything over about 95 dB turns hot white. As it approaches 95 dB, it is red. So when I'm, ringing out, I will keep looking for the very thin red spots, or the hot white spots, depending on the frequency. So for that reason, I'm not trying to color my group with anything. So when I make cuts, I make them as narrow as possible. I also subscribe to the theory of cut, cut, dump. So you'll see I start just under 6 dB when I hear a frequency. When I hear it a second time, I'll give it another -3. When I hear it a third time, I dump it. Right? Your mileage may vary, but that is what I like to do. Okay? What was I about to say? Ah, yes, I remember. Okay, so my theory of the EQing of these guys. My lake is my feedback reduction. I do not want to color anything with my lake. So what I will do is on the channel itself is where I add my color, right? That is specifically for Naya's voice, right? And that's just the hot parts of her voice. And you can tell because of this SD, you really, really have to dig in to actually hear what's going on. It's crazy to me that these are dumped. I don't think that's an actual -18 dump. That's ridiculous for the little effect it is having on the audio. Also, you'll notice I have turned my vocal return, into the only channel member of the vocal return group. The vocal return group also has a corresponding 31 band graphic. So I will not touch this graphic as I'm ringing things out. This graphic is readily available only for showtime so that I have something to grab in a pinch. So I'm not having to go back over here. Right? And yeah, that is it for now. I will get back to you. So this is what it looks like after my ring out. As you can tell, because of the hang of the PA, there were several bits that were really, it gets that like super metallic, just full spectrum. And so the way I found which frequencies I wanted to cut was it would show up, you see as I'm talking, so you get the broad band right there, and I would just push my group to the point of feedback here and find the parts that turn white or turn like a really dark red, right? But this is what it ended up looking like. Again, I did it again. I maxed out all 27 bands on the lake, and I actually ended up doing some stuff on my vocal return channel. However, like I said, I did not do it on my graphic. What I did is I actually did it on the channel EQ itself. And those are pretty significant looking cuts, but again, with these SDs, you have to dig a lot deeper than, that sounds like a 3 dB cut, but it says almost -12. That's bananas. But yeah, so, nickels and dimes, baby. Good luck.